efficient.
I know.
Ooh, I see it. I got it.
Yeah, started without saying anything. It's
Yes,
Really?
uncouth.
If the last 6 weeks are any indicator, she absolutely can.
Uncouth and uncalled for.
No, you just don't like it because you were the one who was almost being caught speaking off
Your
guard.
European sensibilities.
I know, right? We missed all the bedtime topics that you guys like. Who tucks who into bed? Who reads what? How? You know, super
For the
exciting
record,
stuff.
Andreas tucks me into bed.
But do look at what number episode we're on and have a off-color laugh about that.
I was way ahead of you.
Episode number 70?
No.
Yep, that's the joke. 70.
Oh, 69. Wow. Because 6 and the 60 and the 9 and the I got
Hold on. Seriously, Ben, tell me why 70 is funny.
Oh, my
It isn't.
webcam.
It's because it's reversal of expectations.
Because 7, 8, 9? No? Okay,
What?
anyway.
No, that's not how that works. That's not how any of this works.
Strike
because
301.
he's a 6 offender? I mean, which number jokes are we going with? No?
Anyway,
Okay.
welcome to the Dresden File podcast. A part
Exactly.
of Broken Jars XYZ. And then that's all I remember of the intro.
That's all that is the intro.
Shit, I'm good.
Let's talk about news. None. Let's talk about how we swear a lot and spoil everything. Done. All right, intro done.
Awesome. This is great.
We're
You guys are being
professionals.
trained wonderfully.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, what are we talking about in episode 69?
Briefcases.
No, episode 70. That's funny.
Now, briefcases is a little funnier with all the other jokes, but anyway.
Yes.
Indian
We kind
sexuality
of started
in the
with it
Dresden
last
Files is
time.
a very serious topic.
It is very
Holy
serious. But that's next time.
Oh boy.
So we had kind of started on it last time, but we actually go through the short stories of briefcases and chat about them. And that's the agenda.
Some, again, because we couldn't wait when they came out the first time. But now we're kind of doing it like in the context of briefcases because, yay, we got a book.
Yeah, we did do some of them the day they came out, more or less, but we'll go through the other ones because we were all waiting for briefcases for a very long time to have them all in a nice little package.
I wasn't, but yeah.
I mean, some of them I hadn't heard. And some of them I was like, I gotta buy these anthologies. Oh, geez, Louise.
That's what the library's for.
Yeah, but Denmark and English audiobooks. It's kind of
We've had this talk, right? Like, you don't have libraries. What's the deal? Or
We
you
have
don't
libraries. It's just mostly Danish things. Mostly.
They serve pastries.
get them. And the
No.
the Danish dub isn't very good.
I mean, it's not even. There's not even a Danish
I think
like
Books have
paperback version.
translations, not dubs.
There's not even a Danish book of the Dresden Files. It's only in Englando.
Well, I feel like there's a niche market you could be satisfying for some extra cash.
Or protest. I mean,
Either way.
seriously.
Totally off topic. Looking at Justin when he talks, I'm just reminded I'm the only person with glasses now, and it's not fair.
Well,
You should put on your glasses again.
you should use some of that universal health care you've got and get that fixed.
I don't think that covers LASIK.
Does it cover contacts?
No. Pay for your own
Okay,
glasses.
so this is getting off topic. So I might hit that eject button. So we were going to talk about Even Hand when the director... This is just getting worse. Anyway, we're going to talk about Even Hand and Bombshells because the director didn't think we did them justice.
Well, because I remember it was like we basically only had half the conversation of them because we're talking about like, oh yeah, that was really cool and that was kind of fun, and then there's a whole bunch of other things when we had to end.
Should we do the
Dresden
bullet
Files
points?
podcast in a nutshell.
Marcone, Guard, and Hendrix are badasses. They're prepared for a magical attack because, maybe Dresden goes crazy one day and signs up with, the bad guys.
Or just takes out Marcone because he doesn't like him.
They have like a hallway of landmines. And then when you get there, they've got a magical bullet that pierces the shield. Spoiler alert. They fight one of the Fomor. Was there anything else in Even Hand that we missed? I mean, seriously, I am underselling this. Don't get me wrong. Like, seeing Marcone and Hendrix and Guard be total badasses while fighting this guy is fun.
We see Justine kind of in her devious mode too, right?
True.
Yeah.
That's
Just
another great little
there.
little bit.
Being the damsel that causes things to happen.
Which
But then
also
I think how long passes between even hand and
Bombshells.
no
it's
no
the other way.
no how long passes between even hand and the which book is it? It's
I think even
book
hand is
11.
after aftermath, isn't it?
No,
And-
it's not.
Well, hold on. It doesn't have to be because
Yeah,
after
full
changes is when
The reason why I
Fomor
know it's
came-
not is because the bombs in the wall in book 11 is where they got that idea from. They got it from Macone.
Well, no, because it has the Fomor in it, right? And that has to be post changes.
Fomors
No, it
were
doesn't.
around before. They
It's
just weren't.
between Turncoat and Changes, because in Changes, Marcone talks about how someone's encroaching on his territory, which is the first real hint of the Fomor.
Hmm.
It is. I know it's before book 11.
It
Like,
takes
that's why
place
they got it. From.
it takes place between Turncoat and Changes.
Hmm.
So
Oh yeah, but specifically between Love Hurts and Bigfoot on Campus. So it's actually before Bigfoot on Campus, before changes. I looked it up just.
interesting.
I have to
So-
tell Jim. I have to tell Jim he's wrong.
What? Hang on.
When you
Let me see.
become a
I-
beta.
it might be.
No, but clearly,
What?
the bombs in the wall in book 11, which is Turncoat, right?
Yeah.
That's there's a part where they there's landmines in the walls, right?
That was at Laris.
Well,
that was the
I'm
white
thinking-
court.
at Laris, and they got that idea from Macone. Justine saw it at Macone's.
Okay. I'm following you now because the only landmines in the walls that I remember was Skin Game. So
Yeah, no, I mean, it was at Laris. They have these they have the bombs in the walls. It's just been made. You see it. They walk out. It's like plaster or something. I can't exactly remember. I just remember that it's referenced, and I was so sure that even hand was like where they got that idea, and that's why I thought it was before Turncoat.
gotcha.
Because it makes so much sense. Like Justine she sees it, and she's like, "Hey, listen, Lara, great idea. Bombs in the wall."
I think this next read through, I'm definitely going to actually have to go with the whole as chronological instead of reading side jobs and everything after the fact, because that will probably add some context for stuff like Even Hand. Because now I'm curious, like Even Hand, it was a Fomor, right? It wasn't some other random whack job,
no,
which
it was
mean-
definitely a Fillmore frog person.
which means they made a move before changes,
Mhm.
which is a little interesting. So
They were
Well,
around.
they said that he was. That's what they discuss in Burger King, is how someone's encroaching on his territory, briefly but incessantly. Was the quote, if I remember correctly. And they had talked about how the Fomor were basically ready to mobilize immediately, but people had gone missing. Those minor towns were going missing in the weeks leading up.
leading up to
Because they knew
changes.
something-
Yeah, like in Aftermath, they already had several weeks of that they were doing this preliminary stuff.
Yeah,
If
like
it's- or if
the
it's written.
day of the night of bad dreams, the moment that Harry killed Susan, the Fomor were moving in on Chicago, so they were clearly preparing for weeks.
Right.
Right.
So they were
but
already
also,
encroaching
they
on
helped
Macron.
out.
Yeah.
They helped out the Red Court with their assault with a poison gas. We found out in bombshells
Mhm.
that during the war. So it is actually confirmed on the official timeline that it's pre-changes, even pre-Love Hurts, that the first appearance of the Fomor in Even Hand is exactly this. So
Okay. I hadn't really solidified that timeline in my mind. Like,
but-
I think there's a difference between mobilizing and what is happening in Even Hand, but it is a good point. I forgot about the whole bombshells thing. They were implicated in the whole Battle of Sicily cleanup, right? That they were the ones that gassed the wardens, right? That's what we're
Mhm.
talking about.
And so
Yeah.
that's- part of the problem is that we hear about the Fomor in the novels. We hear about it in terms of Harry thinks, oh, there's a power vacuum the Fomor fill in what the Red Court was doing.
Right.
But what was really happening behind the scenes was something he doesn't guess at in the novels specifically. So that's part of the difficulty understanding this.
Right. Well, yeah, and you're right, because it basically we're told through Harry that the Red Court vacuum is why these guys decided to get uppity, but really what's going on is these guys have been backing up the Red Court the entire time, and so there's zero downtime between the Red Court disappearing, which, you know, by and large was probably largely unexpected, other than maybe the Black Court thought it would be a possibility, and then the Fomor just showing up and being like, hey, guess what, there's no 5-minute breaks, we're going to kick your ass now instead of them.
Not
So-
even less than zero. It's less than zero downtime. They were around well before.
Basically, the Fomors were then the faction beneath the Red Court, and like helping the Red Court. And the Red Court disappeared. They moved up, and then all
Right.
the fish
I wonder,
in the ponds.
with
and-
Rashid's comments about how Harry has done nothing but kind of put his thumb in the eye of the big bad guys. I wonder if the Fomor, being involved maybe at the Nemesis level, have been involved with a lot of this stuff, even back to Stormfront.
Well,
is it
and
Fomor? Is it Nemesis? Is it just they're all kind of the Black Council together?
Right, and it all kind of depends on how interconnected he's got the lore at this point, right? Because
Right.
are the Fomor agents of the Sleeper? Are the Fomor agents of, the actual old Fomorian gods? Are those two separate entities? And so forth and so on. So it kind of depends, like, who is ultimately leading them and why and to what ends, because it could be that the Fomor are basically, like, if we go from a Lovecraftian view, the Fomor may be, like the deep ones out of the shadow of Innsmouth, for example, where they are, just warped critters from the outside for where that intersects with Dresden. Or they could be, the Fomor of legend, for example, where they're these warped old pre-fairy creatures, that basically are running around. And really, I think in Dresden, it's both, kind of, or at least potentially. So
I can't help but wonder, since it says in the timeline that's managed by the fans, and it's like it's on the wiki that that even hand is between Turncoat and Changes. I just can't help but feel like that like Jim misremembered or something when he wanted to place that story in the timeline, because it makes so much sense to me that Justine sees that whole bombs in the wall idea, and then Lara puts it in her house. That they got that from even hand, but that takes place after Turncoat, where they see the whole bombs in the wall thing.
there you go. There's your next Q&A question. Chicken and the egg. Who came first?
Why couldn't it be the other way around?
Right. That's
Like,
my idea. So
No,
Or just
I mean, it's a good
independently think of
tactical
it.
idea either way.
Right.
And it's
And
nothing to
from
say
a-
that two
I mean,
entities.
if you
couldn't
think about it
come up.
from a
Actually-
writer's perspective, it's like Chekhov's gun. Like, it just feels
Well-
like Justine is put in this story, and she sees that thing, and then it's in Turncoat, which
The
is like,
thing-
oh, aha.
the
Well,
thing that you
here's
should
another
keep in.
thing.
Go ahead.
They mentioned that Lara probably was hiring ex-Marines for her bodyguards. Guess what branch military Marcon and Hendrix were in?
Also fair. I like that point. But the other point I was going to say is we're getting stuck on which one of these copied the other, but it's not like this is their idea either. Mavra did this shit first in the book series, at least as far as we've seen. And she didn't invent it either.
Were they in the wall? Like, put in
Yeah.
the wall.
Well, they were. It was
It
was
on
like,
the wall.
yeah, in the back of a closet, angled to bounce down a hallway. Like, Mavra did more with one, whereas Marcone and Lara were just like, what if we just set off the entire front of the building?
And
like,
plus Marcone using him in Skin Game, right?
right,
what-
which is what I remember, because like the vault, the vault airlock is like, don't sneeze, because like that's why Dresden had to wear the manacles, right? So
Mhm.
Well,
But-
as far as the story, I mean, you guys have talked about Even Hand before, right?
right.
Yeah. So
I-
I really liked the story. Good story.
Yeah, no,
Marcon's
it's-
inner dialogue was great.
Right. It's definitely one of the better ones.
I really like Jim reading Marcone more than
James Marsters.
Masters. Like, for the people who listen to the audiobooks, I think he did a really good job.
It seemed a little one note to me. That's one of the ones I was a little disappointed in the reading of it, because it didn't seem to have a lot of range. It's all kind of the same delivery.
I don't know. I mean, I thought it was pretty. I thought I could tell who the different characters were. It's kind of like the same critique I feel like my roommate is giving me a lot when he's listening to the Dresden Files, or that he was only listening to the first couple of books, but still he says he can't tell who's talking when Masters is doing voices. Because to an extent I understand that what he means, because he's used to in other books they change their voice a lot more, but I can tell who Masters is talking, like what point of view, because of the way he talks. Like he changes his cadence, his intonation.
Right.
I don't know what to say. Like they speak differently, even if they all kind of sound like Masters.
Right.
Yeah, but
Well,
other professional voice actors, like they make their voice a lot lighter when they're talking from and he doesn't really do that. He sounds a lot like Masters actually, no matter who he does.
Sure.
But I can still clearly tell who is who.
I guess I was thinking more of the performance, even within the same character, even within the same dialogue or the same monologue. It was kind of the same tone again and again. I don't know. It's
I
just
didn't
a
get that.
thing, but I do appreciate that Jim kind of wanted to get in the action, so it's nice, kind of as a fan of Jim Butcher, to hear him do it though.
So the message at home, kids, is read the books, and then you can use whatever voice you want.
No, just listen
I
to
read
them
it
because
first.
it's actually really great to listen to audiobooks too. And
Now-
you can do something else while you do it, like go biking,
Sleep.
shopping.
Now I want Marcone with the Mickey Mouse voice, like, "Hi, Marcone, haha." So
The guy
I
who
hope-
did the day one did a great job. He also reads Monster Hunter International. Justin, this is your weekly reminder.
bi-weekly.
Bi-weekly reminder.
Remind me last
Monster
week.
Hunter International. You will love it. Or listen to it. The audiobooks are great.
It's all right. Anyway, let's see what's next.
Bombshells.
Because even-handed bombshells are very interconnected.
Right.
So we're gonna go that one next.
Which, Bombshells was another one of those that I thought was great, because it's like, holy shit, the Fomor are doing shit before, during, and they're kind of badasses, and you get a little bit more of their technology, for lack of a better word, their gadgets and gizmos, where it's like, hey, we've just got this bomb thingy. And I don't know. It was also fun to see, like, the women, take charge, and like that's the whole point of, well, it's one of the points of the name of the book or of the story and everything like that, is that you have so it was Molly, it was Justine and
Andy.
it was Andy. Yes, thank you. I was going to say,
Right.
yeah. So and come on, so I know I'm not doing this chronologically, but the scene where they like kick in Thomas's door is fantastic. So
Oh boys, did you boys pick the wrong room or whatever it is he says?
right.
So a basic overview of Bombshells. It's in Molly's point of view, and she's very messed up after changes in Ghost Story, and trying to be normal and not always succeeding. And she basically is able to like live minorly with Butters, but not really staying there, just like popping in at random. It pisses Andy off. Also, she used Andy's razor, and that really pissed Andy off.
I don't
You-
get that.
Yeah, it was like, as a female, can you elaborate on that, or like, is that a thing? I don't know.
There is a lot of real estate that a woman might need to shave. So if you use a razor and it goes down, it gets a lot harder.
But
Okay,
It's just so much to cover.
like the whole body.
Pretty much.
Legs, armpits, under the nose. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so we know what you're shaving. Thanks.
Not me. I don't shave nothing. What are you talking
Clearly.
about?
You shaved your nose. Why would you include nose in that? Like,
Sometimes there's unsightly under nose hair for ladies.
so
It's a
you
thing.
shave your nose. Got it. Thank you.
Under
So
the nose,
no.
I said.
I don't know.
So, but-
director, can you elaborate on that? Unsightly nose hair, is that a thing you have?
No.
I mean, if you have hair where you don't want it to be, it is unsightly.
Yes. That's
Simple.
all I mean. Oh.
Well, that is. I guess that is the correct definition of unsightly.
Right, that's what I was thinking. I was like, it's pretty much what it says on the tin, right? Like, so it takes place after ghost story, but I think importantly, she's still the Ragged Lady, and that's
Yeah.
part of what kind of is pissing off Andy. Like, there's a lot that goes into it, right? But it's like Andy has a confrontation with her early on where it's like, what other kind of girlfriend would just let some random woman show up in whenever she wants to her boyfriend's house
she has a
and use
key.
her razor, you know? And
She has a key to Butters' apartment.
right,
So she just lets her in and whatever. And Andy is like, do you realize how much trust this is taking? Please stop pissing me off.
right.
Is
And
that
Molly,
true,
of
though?
course, is doing the whole like, don't make a big deal about it, you know?
Because I was just say, as me listening to that or reading that, the thought did not even occur to me that that would be a problem until Andy like brought it up. Where I was like, I guess I can see that. That like the whole another girl having the keys to her boyfriend's apartment.
I mean,
Well,
I'm not sure if it's even just her boyfriend's apartment. I think Andy was living there at the time as well. That's why her razor was there. So there's someone having a key to my house. I would freak out.
right, and also this isn't just female territoriality or anything. That Andy's an alpha. She knows about the game. You're coming in and out, bringing God knows what with you. You know,
Mhm.
like I'm sure there's multiple levels that go into this, which is
Oh yeah.
you know, part of what's fun about Bombshells is like Harry's pretty much a one-dimensional character in a lot of ways. Like he's going to show up, he's going to get angry, somebody's going to get smushed, you know, whatever. Whereas Bombshells was a little bit of that, but it was a little bit of subtlety, and you know, like they go in a disguise. You know, Harry's worn a disguise like twice, and one of them was him dressing up as a cheesy vampire. You know, so yeah, it's just fun to
I mean,
see the.
There was
different
this other
dynamic.
time where he was. I mean, unless that's what you're thinking about, he was disguised as, stuntman on a porn set.
True.
Yeah,
That was a
an actual
joke,
one,
though. He was the administrative assistant, and he technically was the administrative assistant. So,
Production assistant.
oh yeah, sorry.
Well, the vampire was a joke too. There's nobody there who didn't know who he was.
Right. It was
Right.
it was not a disguise. No.
Well, like James Bond is a disguise. I didn't say it was a good one. Like,
It's a little hard to be a good disguise when you give your name away.
right. So,
Back to Bombshells.
yeah, past the territoriality and everything, like Leah is the one that reaches out to her, right? Or
So Justine shows up to Butters' apartment saying Thomas has been kidnapped and they need to find him.
right.
And then Molly goes and does her magic finding thing, which was great because the way she described how different she does it from Harry, like he will just basically trial by fire figure it out. Like it says this way, I'm going to walk 10 feet and then do it again. She does it with Trig. She uses her brain. It was great.
So nice. It's so wonderful.
I know Harry doesn't necessarily say go 10 feet this way and then do the spell again. He has a thing that like pulls him in a direction.
Well, like he has like a compass needle type thing, and then he's trying to drive around town, figuring out where it's going to take him to go. And she's just like, okay, it's going this way from this point. I'm going to walk a standard distance this way, do it again, and figure out where the triangle is going to be.
You know, the difference here, I think, is almost the difference between a maybe a bad example, but a Batman and a Batgirl. Like in a classic incarnation, you have Batgirl is very much more emphasizing the detective aspect, the intellectual aspect, where Batman can also just go in and punch a guy. He's the world's greatest detective, but he can slug it out. Whereas there is that emphasis on a slyer kind of character moment, which I think is great for Molly. I absolutely agree.
Right.
All right, and then when she finds the building that the oh fuck, what are they called?
That's Svirfneblin.
Svartalfheim.
Svartalf. Yeah.
I had to find the word in my head. Sorry. So the Svartos had Thomas, and they had the building, and she's looking at it.
Oh
and Leah
boy,
shows
did they
up.
have him.
Mm-hmm. And Leah then shows up and kind of gives a basic background of like it's going to be weird and maybe a little raunchy. You're going to have to get him out somehow. But she builds up as it's a real big thing, and then they have to go be pretty because Svartalfs are very attracted to pretty things, and that's why they get all dressed up.
I'm surprised Jim Butcher didn't catch flack for some sort of sexist thing there.
There's
Not that I
still
think.
time.
Not that I think so. Just that that seems like something sensitive people would all. Well, gosh darn, I'll never. I don't know. Let's ask the other Alex.
He's gotten pegged for that in other instances.
Yeah, I know. It's.
I mean, to be fair, like the Svart elves, like they're still fairies, right? And
Mhm.
fairies use that type of shit as a weapon as much as anything. So I'm sure there's a whole lot of other stuff going on there too. But I forget, because there was a reason given in Bombshells, wasn't there? Because like, I mean, they're kind of like, you know, the dwarves anywhere, where they're the
Yeah.
master craftsmen of the Dresden Files. But
Yeah, they like pretty things. So they that's the context of the thing with Freya
Okay.
of why they stole her necklace and why she needed to do that to get it back is because they were attracted to how beautiful that she is, and that's what their possession is about.
right, okay.
Okay. That actually can't be on purpose. That he's like deliberate. Like, there hasn't been dwarves yet. Has he been deliberately working? What's his plan with
Are
dwarves?
Svart elves not dwarves?
No, I know. So then, what's his plan? No, Swart elves are dark
They're-
elves. They're
Yeah.
elves.
It does
but
say Alf, yeah.
dark.
So.
I'm just wondering what his plans is with the dwarves.
They kind of seem like they're trying to take place of some amount of dwarves.
They
Well,
seem
and
to be
I mean-
filling the
Well, with the
role of
craftsman aspect,
Craftsman.
but they did that in the lore too, to some degree.
I
Yeah,
think part of it is that dwarves are, I mean, the dwarves that we're thinking of are largely like a invention of Tolkien, right? So Butcher's been a whole lot more specific. Like, we haven't run across any elves or orcs either, but we have run across the actual specific races that are there. Like, you know, we've got our trolls, we've got our
There were
brownies and things like that. Are there specific?
Yeah, they're not like important, but they were shooting off arrows in small favor.
I think actually that if you're talking about Svart elves versus dwarves, I don't think that in Norse mythology there's a difference. I think Svart elves are dwarves, as we call them, as we think of them.
That's
short,
my
thin,
understanding.
yes and no. Yes, they are very much dwarves the way we think of them, but there are also dwarves in Norse mythology, besides sword elves.
Yeah. Okay. I'm looking at.
If you say so.
I'm gonna trust the Viking guy. So I don't know.
Wait, I'm the Viking guy.
He's literally a
I'm
Viking.
literally from the north.
Yeah, that's
Well,
all I'm saying.
I'm just not. I guess I'm just not finding anything in the Wikipedia entry. I know it's just Wikipedia, but there's mentions of Svart elves and Svartalfheim on the dwarf mythology page on Wikipedia. So there
Yeah,
is
but they are
something
very
to-
much. They are very much the way we think about dwarves is what like sword elves, and that's like kind of what the classic dwarf. I just think that there are folklore about dwarves as well, not just Norse. I think probably somewhere else, but I wouldn't know about that. But I'm just wondering. Surely he has like some sort of plan at some point for not that they would act like we'd think dwarves should, like Tolkien dwarves, but I'm thinking, don't you think he's going to include dwarves at some point?
Well, they're going to build the gauntlet, and then they're going to create Stormbreaker. So that's where we're going to see the dwarves finally.
I mean,
But-
okay,
That was the same
okay.
dwarf in Bombshells, wasn't it, Etri? That Peter Dinklage was.
Spoiler alert, Avengers, but it's been out for a while now. But how hilarious was it that the dwarf was huge?
Yeah.
Right.
I
That the
laughed.
dwarf was a dwarf and used.
played by a dwarf. Yeah,
Right.
By a little person. Right.
Played by an actual dwarf. I thought it was very meta.
Wonderful. Anyways,
Yeah. Director, you'd have to, watch a movie at some point. So,
She's
I just
or
don't
like
like Avengers.
15.
I don't like comic
Just
books.
un-American. Leave her alone.
Yeah. Right.
when the Danish man is more American than the director of your podcast.
Oof. Yeah. That's so. Anyway,
Yeah, he's the one with the
Bombshells.
original healthcare. Blah, 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 blah.
So Bombshells, part of what's going on though is delegations, right? So that's part of why the Fomor were there to make a pact with the Svart elves before everything else goes on. So
Yes. The Fomor and the Svart elves were going to sign a pact at midnight on that day that they had taken Thomas, and that's why there was a party. And the whole devious plan was that once they sign, and then they have to be on each other's side, the Fomor was the brother of the guy that they killed in Even Hand, and Marcone was there and involved anyway, and he was going to kill everybody, and then the Svartals would also be implicated in the war.
Gotcha. And so, I mean, I keep pulling back to this because I remember it being a bigger part. We haven't talked about it a whole lot, but like Leah also came to Molly, right? Because she had one of those A-B plots like Dresden does, where like Dresden's like, oh, I've got 2 jobs. Oh my God, how am I going to do both jobs? Turns out it's the same job. Whereas Molly was like, Leah needed
go
to
get
make
Thomas,
sure.
go stop the Fomor. Like they
Right.
happen to be the same thing,
Right.
but you didn't quite know that, even though they're both at the same place. And then all the girls get really dressed up, and Andy's super excited, and he's talking about shoes a whole bunch, and they go to a party. Yeah. Then they go
Excuse me, babe.
find like the down area of the building and kind of figure out where Thomas is, and then they figure out where the Fomor dude is, and then he has a gigantic shell, which turns out to be a bomb. And then they fight, and Thomas has fun.
Right. Well, I mean, Thomas had fun. Then he fought. Then it was fun.
You think he doesn't enjoy fighting?
That's what I'm saying. Like different kinds of fun, though, for sure.
Yeah. No, just Thomas having fun.
Right.
There are times. I think he finds it a little passe every once in a while, but there are times when he enjoys a good fight. He was he did sign up for the Wild Hunt for one night, and he's got it in him.
Mm-hmm.
Another really satisfying aspect of that fight, I think, was like we were saying about Molly, how she used misdirection on a pretty extended way in that climax, where it was her and Andy versus the big bad. Is it Listens?
Listen,
Or was just the name, the Lord?
no S.
But yeah,
Listen,
Listen.
main
I
thug.
I was actually just
Ghost
looking this
story.
up because I couldn't let it go. I think I might have mixed up some stories so that they're like where they're called in one story they might be called dwarves, and another they're called like Swartlfar or similar. But it seems they are basically like synonymous with each other.
That's
This
what I
sort of
thought.
older word, probably.
Makes sense.
In
any case, but
Danish,
yeah, I
they're
really
called
appreciate it.
Dokkolfa.
So tell us more about this misdirection that Molly did.
Well, yeah. So she throws her voice in various ways and has to very slightly give the guy a little hints about where she is, but not all the way. So it has to be that very delicate working that really plays to her strengths, or at least she made the situation play to her strengths. So rather than be the I threw everything I had, and there was a lot of fire, and then I collapsed from exhaustion, and I woke up a day later. So that kind of pattern that you see in Harry's escapades, you have this slyer working where she's running around under the veil, throwing her voice out from various directions, making the guy send his fire up to the ceiling and so on, and so tire the guy out by having him attack where she isn't.
Gotcha.
She also did the small like number change on the door, which is why they broke into Thomas's room, and she was
Right.
able to let him be the literal muscle while she dealt with other things.
Yeah, using the sorceress talents in the D&D campaign like Molly does with that is entirely the fun of a magical character for me. So it was wonderful to see that in this story.
These Fillmore people are really weird, though. Like, listen, he shows up and he kills the bodyguard at the door, and then he disturbs the Fillmore guy that says he didn't want to be disturbed, and has the person who allowed me to be disturbed been killed. And he says yes. Weird situation.
Well, it's one of those like, yeah, like I think Listen did a bad thing and then used it to his advantage, where it's just like it's chaotic evil. Like, they're I'm going to show up, I'm going to do a bad thing, and then somebody's going to have to die, but I'm going to make sure it's a subordinate. And, I'm sure the head Fulmore guy kind of knows that too. Like, Listen's my trusted lieutenant. He wouldn't fuck up like this. So it's got to be that pissant's fault. Good thing he's already dead. And let that be a lesson to you guys, So
Did I hear chaotic evil? Are we back to talking about alignments?
Yeah, it's
No.
like,
yeah,
you
we
mean
got to
chaotic
do
evil?
alignments
You mean
part 7
lawful evil.
next.
I think the kettle's going off. I'll see you guys later.
Well, the chaotic evil is the infighting, for sure, is what I'm thinking. Where it's just like the Fomor definitely, I mean, they've got a power structure, but it's definitely a little bit more backstabby. And definitely the fairies,
It's white courtish and fairyish, and
Mhm.
probably all. I mean, let's face it, all the even the friggin' wizards are backstabbers. Everybody's trying to get a leg up on everybody else, even and especially your best friend, because your best friend's the one closest to you that could just as easily turn. So why not have a leg up on them?
Damn, Jacob, who hurt you?
Yeah, I
know
don't
what to
follow
say.
you all the way, but I see some of what you're saying, because it's like I think I started from Dresden's side where that doesn't really happen that much. So
Well, he's also, he's irrational with that kind of trusting of people, and everyone in his circle is valued. And oh my God, I would never. But I mean, I imagine in a practical sense, if he ever sat down, he could, without much difficulty, have that Batman scenario, where Batman comes up with a contingency plan for all the Justice League members. Harry could do that and not really break too much of a sweat about it, considering what's going on.
Now. I think
Right.
he could now.
Mhm.
Right? And when he tried to do that with potions early on, it always ended up ways he didn't expect. He kind of made the best of it.
Right. But now with a daughter and with the scope of what's going on more, he could do that.
and I think he already has in Skin Game. That's the big reveal, right? With Goodman Gray.
well, seeing him be sneaky with people, but specifically, like, imagine him having a plan to take out every member of the senior council. I don't think we're there yet. I think he's got the personality. He's getting that kind of devious, but he's definitely not there yet.
No.
So,
Well, because he doesn't know what they have.
right.
I mean-
And yay, peace talks. Woo! All right. So,
I mean, the scene I'm most looking forward to in Peace Talk is Dresden, Maggie, Thomas, and McCoy just sitting around dinner table, eating like a family,
and then Justine, because
Yeah. What
she's
dream
part of the
scenario are
family
you
too.
living in?
and they're just having a good time, and it's nice. They have
If
good life.
And there's a very small if Ebenezer actually doesn't know who or what Thomas is already.
That's
He's
been
going.
confirmed. He doesn't.
Butcher
I-
confirmed it. Butcher
I know,
confirmed
but he also had an earlier word of Jim's where he said he knows far too much about Thomas and all that.
Yeah.
I don't think he decided yet.
okay.
I think
So,
he has.
to
No.
borrow one of my favorite lines from Lucky Number 11, I'm a world-class assassin, fuckhead. It's my job to know. Like, he's a senior council level wizard, the Black Staff. I think regardless of what Jim says, I think it's diminishingly likely that he doesn't fucking have any idea.
He knows where his
But I
daughter was for all
suppose
those
it's
years.
possible. Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's the other thing. Like, he's already seen it happen with Maggie, and he had no idea how many children she had and with whom and where and blah blah blah. Like, no.
There was that point where maybe Lucio wasn't captain of the Wardens yet, but Lucio hadn't known where Margaret Margaret Le Fay was when Thomas Wraith
No,
was born.
Margaret's not her kid.
But
Right.
McCoy was at
Yeah,
a
that's
dinner
true.
party with the fucking White King and his daughter,
And Ariana.
and now there's this White Court
That's
vampire who's
true.
always
Okay,
running
I
around
can
with
see.
Harry and living
Yeah.
with him.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see, and Jim has a way of surprising me every time. But I feel like it would be a disservice to McCoy's character for him to not know. Let's
Mhm.
put it that way.
Especially
Like,
when he puts so much lip service to Harry. You can't. He's a vampire. You can't this, that. And like that, to him, that's not Margaret's son. That's the White King's son.
Sure. Yeah. Anything else from Bombshells?
Well, this is literally how she gets her apartment, because
Oh, yes.
she was so grateful for the fact that she caught and stopped the Fomor before they killed everyone and dishonored the Svartals, that this is how she got her awesome apartment.
Which is
She
big
doesn't
important
use anymore.
because
Oh yeah.
as soon as we were like, oh yeah, I got it from helping the Svartalfs, it's like, whoa, I want to know that story. And then
Yeah,
we get
because
to know.
it's gigantic
Yeah,
in Chicago.
and it's
Seriously.
fantastic. It's wonderful.
It's probably bigger on the inside because Svartalf magic. So
Yeah, whatever. It's like she has a gigantic kitchen, like lots of rooms, and probably several bathrooms, and like an in-home gym. It's like, how,
Is it
And
in
it's
that building?
guarded
Is
by
it
like
like the hallway and stuff we see in Bombshells? Is that basically where she moves in?
I didn't
Yes.
think so because I thought the place they were at in Bombshells was like a mansion, right?
Mhm. Right. Right.
But
It's
she
like a
just gets, like,
weird
a super-
postmodern building or something. Like,
I thought it was like a business building. I don't remember. Now I'd have to go back and search for that description. It could be the
thought
same
it was like
building,
this-
but I don't think it was the same hallway because she had an outdoor exit
Gotcha.
and a place to park her car in Chicago.
Whew.
The one
Yeah.
person in the entire story who doesn't need an apartment is Molly because she never stays anywhere. She's the most bohemian of all the people.
well, that's
She
the
would be
whole-
happy with a hammock out in the park.
Well, wasn't the whole point of her like getting a base like that was like until she turned into
Yes, but I mean, think about all the things.
Base.
Every time she gets a major magical anything, no home. She gets talent. She leaves, the
no
carpenter.
power. Shit, I gotta go sleep.
She
on
gets
the
her
bench.
own apartment. She becomes the Winter Lady, and now she's chilling out under the polar ice cap. She doesn't.
It
live
did
there
take
anymore.
a little bit of time. And like this is the place also that like she was preparing for Harry to come back because at the very end of the story is when she figures out that Leah was hinting Harry's alive.
Right. And I thought it's been said and or at least implied that like Harry's living in her apartment now that she's
Mhm.
the Winter Lady. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mhm.
so yeah, like so yes, she doesn't need the apartment. It was just another way for Jim to get Harry back on his feet, I guess. I don't know, something like that. But yeah. Bless you.
Thank you. Okay. Next would be probably the Bigfoot trilogy.
Super fun.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. yeah.
I like how they progressed, between each one. Like you can see like, hey, wait, Harry's paying attention and he's learning shit, So
Yeah.
does
So
Go
I
ahead.
guess if anyone wants to start with like a synopsis for B is for Bigfoot.
That's the
Sure.
first one, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The first
Uh,
in order.
I just listened to this one again on the road trip.
Oh, hey, someone who does work. Awesome.
Hey, I mean,
listened to it like a month ago.
yeah, I incidentally listened to it recently.
Uh, yeah. Anyway, so Dresden gets this mysterious call out in the forest. He waits an hour. He finds Bigfoot. Bigfoot's there. He manages to scrounge up some stuff for them to eat. Bigfoot says, "Hey, I got my kid. My kid's in trouble. Could you go and help him?" So Dresden heads on down to the school where his kid is, and his kid's being picked on by some twins.
Smart
In
elf
between that,
science
he
with
talks to
smart
his
elf
mom.
again.
Yes, Swart
Yes.
Elves again. Yes, and the Swart Elves, the little kid Swart Elves, are being enabled and defended, and basically by the big bad daddy Uncle Swart Elf, who's not really related, but is just protecting them, and prevents Dresden from acting directly to keep this nerdy little Bigfoot child from being
You say
bullied.
little.
That's
Yeah.
true. He's the biggest one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
he-
like what, 4th grade and 6.5 feet tall.
Yeah, he's basically as tall as Harry, right?
Yeah.
Anyway,
He was that wasn't
Little
fourth
for a
grade. He
Bigfoot.
was like 14.
little for a Bigfoot. You want this?
I thought he was younger than that because
In the
I
first
thought
one,
in-
he's not a teenager yet.
because in the
Yeah.
second one he's a teenager.
Oh yeah, I was.
Yeah.
a teen.
First
Well,
one,
Like
he's-
a preteen.
either way, he wasn't a fourth grader.
About that though, he's elementary school, wasn't he?
I thought so. Let me.
Well,
I will click
something.
on it and I will read a little bit of the story as you keep talking.
Yeah. So that's the dilemma. That's the conflict, and Harry has to figure out how to help this kid without getting crushed by the big bad Svart Elf, who could really own Harry pretty easily if Harry directly gets involved. And there's some good bits of menace there. He's undercover as a janitor, and he gets paid in a gigantic gold nugget by the end.
So, well, and a second one I thought because he threw
Yeah,
him
the
one
second one.
initially. So
One
importantly here, which I didn't realize until I just looked, it takes place between Full Moon and Grave Peril. So
Mhm.
it's baby Harry. And I call that out because, again, these stories were written way after the fact, and I read them way after the fact, obviously. And so, like, he deals with this Svartalf, and at one point they have a little, showdown where it gives him the ultimatum. It's like, if you interfere, I will kill you. And Harry's like, you know what? You probably would, And
Yeah.
I'm like, that's pretty crazy. This dude must be super powerful. But no, he's dealing with like baby Harry. So
Yeah,
Right,
and
right.
Harry didn't solve the issue by beating someone. He solved it by being clever and letting someone else beat someone.
right. So he basically did the dad thing, right? He told the kid how to deal with bullies, and the kid dealt with bullies because the whole thing was the Svartalfs are picking on him because they know he's supernatural, and as Uncle Svartalf called him, he's a whetstone. He's there for the kids to sharpen their instincts. And so that's kind of what was going on. And then Harry's just like, look, if you want them to leave you alone, do this thing, because they're not just going to hurt you. So consider you're not standing up for yourself, you're standing up for everybody else, type of thing. So, and then he tells that to the Svartalf afterwards as well. It's just that he's like, why would I not take retribution on baby Bigfoot? And it's like, well, consider that what he did was doing your kids a favor, because someday they're going to bite off more than they could chew, and something out there is going to kill them instead of just rough them up a little bit like just happened. So you learned the lesson, and you learned it early before somebody got maimed or dead.
Right.
So
Which was a clever enough answer for the Svartalf, who appreciated it, and true enough that he didn't have to beat up Harry in retaliation, which was nice.
right, which it is fun to see Harry resolve a thing that doesn't involve like blowing out windows and doors off of hinges and stuff, for sure.
Or schools burning down, and those
I
things.
mean, to be fair, he basically doesn't even use any magic in the story, right? Like, I think he used his sight at one point to figure out that the dude was a Svartalf, but other than that, he basically
the most thing that he did was dress up as a janitor.
right.
See, disguise.
Right.
There it is. Oh yeah.
See, but it's a good little intro into what he's not going to be able to do for Maggie, since she's going to be going to the same school with the same hands-off policy. The kids duke it out
Different
themselves.
Story. Yeah,
it is a different one, yeah.
So B is for Bigfoot says it takes place in Madison Academy, but
Yeah,
I
the
was a
next
teenage
one takes place.
Bigfoot. Yeah, that's smagged.
Yeah. Which is great because he totally makes that crack in
Yes.
this one. So Teenage Werewolf, basically, it's several years later. This one takes place around Deadbeat.
Bigfoot.
So-
Teenage Bigfoot.
Isn't that what I said?
I was a teenage Bigfoot.
Yeah,
What-
you said teenage
whatever.
werewolf. That's okay.
Okay.
Teenage
Well, okay. So Freudian slip, because that's where it's ripped off from. So,
werewolf. Right.
but this time, Erwin, baby Bigfoot, is a teenager and he's sick, which is problematic because
Wah.
big-footed people don't
Big
get
feet.
sick. I know, right? I was just trying to conjugate. But anyway, so they don't get sick because the forest people have a super awesome life aura, and that's just not what happens. So everybody freaks out because it's a thing that's happening. Harry goes in. You're right, dude. He's got loads of disguises. So he goes in disguised again as a lawyer this time because
That was a private investigator because he can't pull off
Yeah.
lawyer, but he is like,
Okay.
the mother hired me because she is concerned. Do give me access to the child or I will make her worried.
right.
Well,
And
that
then
wasn't
she's-
much- that wasn't much of a disguise. That was just he actually did have the paperwork. He actually did
Yeah,
have it.
which is the
Okay,
best
okay.
to kind of disguise.
But
That-
that is
Also,
He was disguised as somebody with authority and like actually an adult.
I'll allow it
And-
because Ben doesn't like it. It's a disguise.
it just as a note that we didn't describe this kid's mother. Like, she is probably larger than Charity and very, very intimidating if she wants to be.
Right.
I
Well,
mean,
she's like a mountaineering, woman.
archaeologist.
Like, yeah,
Yes.
Yeah. Who survives a winter? Yeah, no, she's fed. She's
I
fed
mean-
and taken care of, but she
Mhm.
survives a winter in the wilderness.
with
Yeah,
big
stranded.
Yeah,
Mhm.
stranded.
because that's how that happens. So, so she's off in some remote thing. So Papa Bigfoot reaches out to Harry, gives him power of attorney, sends him to go check the kid. They do the typical administrative bullshit, like, no, I don't want you to see the kid, partially because dude's in on the take in this case. So he's trying to just shoo Harry away and play the administrator. No, it's fine. Everything's going to be fine. The nurse is kind of fun because she doesn't take bullshit from Dresden, but she wants to help Erwin, and she's willing to help Dresden a little bit to make that happen. And then Harry gets to throw down with the guards a little bit, which was also kind of fun because then that makes everybody freak out. And Harry realizes that, there is actual black magic going on here. So when he figures out the spell and everything, tracks it down to its source, surprise, it's the school administrator who's also a dickbag. But extra surprise, my favorite part of the twist was that the dude he's one of the
He's an ex-Venatori.
Yeah, Venatori, thank you. I could only remember the second half of the name.
Stupidest reason for black magic yet.
Yes.
Which is the great thing about it.
Yes, because he wants to grow hair.
Yes, vanity is a very powerful force. And he's going bald. He sees that Erwin at age 14 is covered in hair. He's like, I'm going to steal some of that and look pretty.
Right. And it's great because I think my favorite part is Harry is like, I can fucking kill you for this, right? And dude's like, please don't. And Harry's like, never again. And then that's the end of it. I'm just like, it's so anticlimactic in a way too, because you've already had the throwdown with the guards, and then Harry doesn't even hurt the guy or anything.
I'm fine with it.
The guy's name is Dr. Fabio.
Right.
That wasn't a hint right at the beginning, right?
Oh, and it's even better. Okay, so the whole him making fun of it, right, is so he's at St. Mark's Academy for the Gifted and Talented, right? Or the Gifted. Yeah, it is gifted and talented. Yeah. So, and he's like, shouldn't it be resourceful and talented? It'd be smart instead of smag it. And he's like, that doesn't even make sense, because I forget he does hit the guy. He's like, look, I'll even show you how to work it. He's like, smag it, and hits the guy. Because just kind of demonstrating that it's you don't even need a real word to use magic. You just do the thing. So. But I like how that was made a joke, and I didn't even fully catch on until we were talking about the young adult series that's coming out. Because she's going to go to the same thing, and everybody keeps hearing the story from Butcher where it's oh yeah, she's going to go to that, and Dresden's going to make jokes about it all the time, and it's he already made the joke. That's fantastic. We already know the school.
I'll give it a pass because repeated dad jokes that aren't even funny anymore is a dad joke thing. So I'm fine with it.
A dad joke to itself.
A dad joke to itself. Exactly right.
Right.
All right. And the next one in the Bigfoot trilogy is Bigfoot on campus of when he's in college and a football player, like you could imagine.
Right. And is awesome for its own thing. This one's turncoat and changes again. A lot of stuff happened there, apparently.
Yeah, apparently. This is definitely, Harry is in the know. It had to happen after the White Knight because he saw a particular White Court vampire there that comes up in this one. We'll explain that one in a minute.
True. Yeah. Does someone else want to do this one? Okay. So my favorite part about this
you can't
one,
see me. I was shaking my head.
Oh yeah, you're
heard the rattling,
dude. So I think my favorite part of this one is how it takes the entire story takes place after the story, where basically the whole narrative here is that he's telling the campus cop what happened for all the crazy shit that happens. So Harry's doing a noir story to the cop as it goes on, and you could just totally visualize him being in the interrogation room or wherever while this is going on, and it's fantastic. And so they have these little side bust moments like you would get out of Princess Bride and whatever, where the cop's like, hey, what about this? He's like, do you fucking want to know the story or not? So
it's but how did the car end up in the ceiling? It's did you just listen?
Right.
Yeah, it's a nice little touch that way. It's like those things can be fun because okay, the main character gets out alive, but what about everyone else?
Right. Right. So in this one, Papa Bigfoot again, reaches out to Harry. If you haven't read the stories, definitely read the stories because there are some fun little tidbits there. Like I think it's the first or second one. Harry's like, "How do you even call me? Like your hands are too big for phones." He's like, "Oh, well, we've got people on the reservation help us with that." And every time, Papa Bigfoot's like, "So, got any smokes?" Is like one of my favorite lines out of those stories. But anyway, so he calls him. His son's in trouble again, as you might imagine. This time he's in college, a football player. Dresden is on campus. He's looking.
Oh, the payment isn't a negative gold this time. It is you have to meet your kid because Erwin has never met his dad yet. And he's
Right.
like, if I help him, you have to see him because this is wrong. That's Dresden being a forceful dad even before he knew he was a dad.
And then
Right.
not taking his own advice later.
Mm-hmm. He should have met Papa Bigfoot again after that. It's like, hey, go meet your kid. Have fun with that.
Well, and even more than that, this time around though, doesn't he actually offer to wire the retainer? So he's like upped his game anyway. I thought like he stopped doing the gold and like actually was doing proper banking at one point. So
No,
but
it's a gold nugget.
This one. I mean,
It's
because
a gold nugget about as big as a ping pong ball.
Yeah, the second one
Okay.
was a little bigger, if I remember correctly.
Gotcha.
And
Okay.
then, I don't know.
So he goes on campus. He's looking for Erwin, sees him on the field, but he bumps into somebody first, and turns out that she is his girlfriend.
Mhm.
So this cute little Southern accent. I can't remember too much. I think she was just a cute little blonde girl, right? Basically. So
Yeah.
Just.
yeah, well,
Dun,
I mean,
dun,
we're
dun.
going to get to that. So, she's there and she's kind of flirting it up with Dresden a little bit. And then she's like, oh, I'm going to have to collect you. And as everything is kind of like coming to a head and whatnot, Erwin gets cut from practice. You're welcome. I'm doing some of these double entendres on purpose, just a couple, but so they get cut from practice. He hops the fence, comes over and says, hey, what's up? That's when they realize, it's like, oh, you are waiting for somebody on the field. You're waiting for Erwin. Okay, plot thickens.
And
So
what she means by collecting is just go to dinner and have a nice time. It's a very banal, friendly, nice time, and nothing to do with the fact that she is a white cord vampire and doesn't know it.
spoilers,
She's a white cord vampire and doesn't know it.
right?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So they go to dinner, and Erwin, of course, knows who Harry is at this point because he's showed up out of nowhere twice before in his life. And they do their dinner thing. Yeah, she just likes to hang out with people, get stories, and their picture, I think, was part of it.
Mhm.
And then at one point, like she goes to the bathroom, and then Erwin's like, "Okay, cut the crap. What the fuck's going on?" And Harry's like, "Well, I don't know yet, but as soon as I know, I'll let you know." And I'm not here to try and like muck stuff up. I'm just here because I was hired, and your dad and all that fun stuff.
Yeah. And at
Um,
this point, Erwin gets pissed off. Is like, he doesn't get to interfere with my life if I've never even seen him. Yeah.
Right.
Which is the
So-
correct response.
Yeah, totally understandable. Here, I'm having trouble picking up the next thread. So, does anybody remember? Because otherwise, I can remember the climax mostly. But
Right.
So
uh,
after
Well,
the
thread is-
dinner, Harry and the girl Connie, they go walking because Erwin wanted to go home differently, and they start talking. And Connie is describing how in love she is with him, and you realize like she really doesn't know, and she really cares about him. And then her dad shows up,
right,
and
okay,
it's like, "Stay away from my child! I will kill you." It's like, "Oh yeah, you were at the Deeps."
right, like front row left, right. So
yeah,
so daddy's there. He was in the deeps in White Knight, managed to escape, and he was pretty much front, as we said. And then basically, like Connie goes with him, right? And then
Mhm.
at one point, dude is basically setting it up like Erwin was supposed to be her first kill, and Daddy Vampire is stupid and doesn't realize what's actually going on.
yeah.
You know,
The thing is that he was her first, but the giant chunk that she took out of him didn't kill him. They were just really tired and didn't know what was going on. And then they had a relationship.
Right.
So
And he still wants Erwin to be her first kill, so he's going to orchestrate all that jazz. Now, the part where I get a little bit confused on this, and maybe while we're discussing this, it'll come out and whatnot, is that if she's truly in love with him and they do the thing, she
Right.
shouldn't be a white core vampire anymore. So somebody's lying.
Well, no. So they didn't know each other until they hooked up at a party and then liked each other afterwards.
yeah,
So
she
their-
wasn't in love when they did it.
Yeah,
The
their
first-
first
Okay.
time makes sense. But every time after that, both of them recognize that they love each other. Why are they not killing each other?
Well, there's that too. Like that, because so let's say you're right. At the party, it wasn't love yet, whatever, because they basically met because they got spin the bottle and wound up in the closet together or whatever.
Yeah, I think so.
But yeah, like certainly now, with their ongoing relationship, and they talk about how I think she might be the one or whatever. In this case, like that should still be lethal to her in some way, unless it's different because he's a Bigfoot.
Well,
So-
there's also
or
the
half.
possibility. I mean, she, I don't know that this is necessarily a prerequisite, but the fact that the hunger didn't get a kill the first time, so she's not technically. I mean, yes, she is feeding on him, but she's not a white court vampire in the same sense that any other white court vampire is a white court vampire. Up
never
to the
made
fact
the
that she
conscious-
doesn't even know.
Yeah, she has no idea.
So the hunger itself might not be developed enough to the point where it's going to be mortally injured by true love in the
What
same
might-
way.
You'd have to, I think, invent some kind of reasoning, because I think it's clear from the text that she's supposed to be a full white court vampire, but like you're saying, not in the same sense as everyone else. Because I think that's where the dilemma in the text is. If you make it so that, well, she's not a white court vampire, well then, okay, then it's just the situation as with youngest Wraith, right?
Right.
Right.
Because that's the thing. It's like this is definitely far enough in. Dresden knows about Inari. Like
Mhm.
that's not a mystery how that whole life cycle works, and yet in this book or in this story, it doesn't seem to play a role for whatever reason.
No,
So
it is a short
ma-
story.
maybe
Well,
it
could make
is.
sense to me. And it's consistent with maybe the laws of magic, even though, of course, that's wizards and not supernatural. If killing somebody with magic changes you in such a way that you become kind of corrupted and dangerous, maybe that's the same mechanism that's operative in making the part of the white court vampire that feeds on people, making that evil, right? Or making that kind of the monster that Thomas talks about, that Lara talks about, that all these white court vampires talk about. Maybe it is the kill itself that makes that feeding, that hunger, actually bad. That creates the vampire to be the evil vampire rather than just,
Right. Her hunger is just doing a kind of a passive thing right now. It's not
right.
controlling her. It's not seeking her. She's not falling to the floor every other day if she doesn't have. I mean, they're having a lot of sex, but she's not. She's not dripping with desire to eat someone every 5 seconds.
Because otherwise, if she does love them and they do love each other, and she's a white court vampire, then she should eventually kill him, or he should eventually kill her at least. And
But-
I don't think that's where he's going with this.
So I get part of what you're saying, but it still doesn't explain the fact that like love is the antithesis of the hunger. It's not merely a good and evil thing, because Thomas, case in point, Thomas wasn't feeding to be evil. He was feeding just enough to get by, and he still couldn't touch Justine
Well,
without
that's
it burning
that's
him.
later.
Like burning him.
That's
Well,
later. He's already got a well-established life of. There were people before Justine, clearly.
Right.
Right.
I mean,
point
the
what I'm
reason
saying, though,
that
is- Oh, yeah,
the
go ahead.
thing to die right away was that they weren't in at all in love. It was just a kind of chance encounter.
Well, and I get that, but now they have an established relationship, and she's
They're not
clearly a white
they're
court
not in love
vampire.
enough yet. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's like
It's possible to.
Thomas didn't get burnt by Justine until that sacrificial moment where they both of
That's
them
fair.
like
She gave herself
basically
up
wanted to die for
and
each
she
other.
loves him, and she admitted it. He took himself away from her because he loved her, and he admitted it. It's the fact that they both admitted it. I think that
I was
actually
thinking that they both were willing to die for the other person. He
that
stopped.
too, same basically symptom of the same thing. And it seems like the way Connie and Erwin talk about each other is like they probably already recognize that in each other.
So
Maybe.
someday he is going to kill her. Because that if I mean if
someday they're gonna have to include another sex partner.
right. Dresden's going to be like, "Hey, my brother's got some advice for you kids." Like,
Or maybe
Well,
there's
after
a
all
weird
that,
thing.
they kind of get into the know of what the whole deal is, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
I think, or doesn't he tell Erwin, or she tell Erwin? He finds out.
well, and Erwin knows because he reads the Paranet, which is the fun tidbit for this book too. He's like, "I've been on the internet, some joke place called the Paranet."
I don't think he mentions the Paranet by name.
No, he did.
Yeah,
He
it
did.
absolutely did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Paranet, we missed it. Okay, I have this great thing.
No,
But
we're over.
Bigfoot
We
story.
can't do it. We're
No,
over.
no.
Sorry.
In the second Bigfoot story,
Bear the Broken Jars.
the paranormal investigator with the professor is named Gary. Is that the same Gary? Who is Gary?
I don't
Inquiring
know.
minds
Gary
want
is.
You are Gary.
Yeah. I
No, but
can't follow
seriously.
this because I got stuck on your Gary. So what?
to know. Okay. Other than myself being Gary, there is the Gary at the very beginning, the framing device, or the very kind of the cold open of the second Bigfoot story, and he's there trying to find a Bigfoot with the other two guys. He just
Oh, right.
happens to be named Gary. Is that the same guy who becomes Paranet Gary? Boat
It
County
is now.
Gary.
I mean, it
Okay.
totally could be because as far as that Gary, the particular Gary that we're talking about ever did was just boats on Twitter.
And to be fair, so like I want to capture this moment just a little bit because I forgot how hilarious it is until you mentioned it. I had forgotten about it entirely. Harry goes out with a Bigfoot hunting crew in the second book. And at one point, like Bigfoot shows up and they all freak out and Harry screams and they all run away. And then it's like, are you like stuck here? He's like, whatever. In a couple of days, I'll just like walk out of here. And it's like, yeah, but they're going to think I killed you, you know? So just this hilarious moment for that. Yeah, I totally spaced it. I didn't know the dude's name was Gary. You're famous. Good job.
Okay, after post Peace Talks Q&A
I mean,
episode, I'm asking him.
I think he either he planned that, or as soon as he knows about it, he'll be like, "Yep, that's the same Gary."
I
Right.
don't know.
Yeah,
probably
I-
just a coincidence, honestly, but
Jim totally reuses the names. Like we've had that discussion. How many Margarets are there? It's very possible they're two different dudes named Gary, but if you ask him this question, it'll be the same Gary.
Mhm.
So
And then you will have made the most inane piece of Dresden File lore yet. Congratulations.
yes. And Murphy is Mab. Wonderful.
yes. Okay. So you're fired and and let's talk about the climax because we're already over and I mean
sorry. Well,
both figuratively and literally. So because White Core
Because-
vampires.
everything seems to happen in like the dorm room and spilling over into the rest of the dorm building because there's just a gigantic orgy happening with all sorts of various people because White Core vampires trying to make sure Connie kills Erwin.
Yeah, her father puts the
So-
whammy on them to make sure they she screws into death this time.
Exactly.
And it spills
Daddy-
over to the entire.
Yeah, Daddy is pouring his lust and whatever other nonsense into her so that she bangs Erwin until he dies. And then because White Court vampires, that has an area of effect for the whole dorm building. So,
Mhm.
which is one of my other favorite lines from this story, which is like, so you want to explain to me how you wound up in the middle of the orgy? It's like, well, if you're going to go to an orgy, isn't the middle the best part? So,
It's like Harry shows up. He's like, Erwin! And surprisingly, Erwin didn't notice.
super weird.
Usually
Yeah.
you pay attention when someone yells your name.
I mean, I can understand why he's a little distracted.
He was a little busy.
a little busy.
He had the effects of essentially two White Cord vampires like going at him.
And then
Right.
Harry gets kind of knocked about and tied up, and the Connie's dad is just talking like, "Well, after she's done with him, you're next." And it's like,
Your
ooh,
dessert.
yes, your dessert.
Also, don't the ghouls show up again? because that's a thing.
Oh yeah, this
Right,
guy's
his-
ghouls. Yeah.
And that's
his
where
guards are
River
ghouls.
Shoulders shows what he actually can do.
Yeah, it was like
Well-
20 or 30 goals. It's like, and Harry's like, it was not a fair fight at all for the
Right.
ghouls.
I think River Shoulders is the one who has a car, and he just like drives it straight into the dorm room, and that's
he
his
throws
entrance.
He
They're-
throws.
oh, he
He throws.
throws
the
They're
it.
ball.
upstairs.
Yeah.
He threw the car
Oh, he threw the car.
into the building because that's where he's like,
Okay.
"You want to explain to me about the car?" And he's like, "College prank," you know, like. So yeah, because it's like
Typically, you don't have to go through a wall. Right?
yeah, it's like a fourth story window or some nonsense. Like it's wherever it is, it's up high and pretty impossible to get it up there. But some of the fun. So obviously the River Shoulders takes on like 30 ghouls. They kind of like wound him, obviously, but they should have brought more ghouls. But even more importantly, I thought was the moment where it's like he describes his magic, because the Papa Vampire is caused his White Court chaos and whatever to go on, and it's going on. River Shoulders shows up and he pulls the ripples out of the water, right, is the way that he describes the thing. So basically it's like Harry goes through this whole thing about how you throw a pebble into the water and it makes ripples, right? Well, River Shoulders didn't like put more ripples in the water to cancel those out. He pulled the ripples out of the water. He made the water smooth again. And he's like, I can't describe to you the kind of power that is, you know, like he didn't undo the magic so much as he just, it's such a great description. So
that didn't do anything. Like Connie and Erwin are still in their thing, but I think it did kind of stop all of the rest of the orgies going on. And once they weren't in White Court Whammy anymore, they're just like, oh, okay, I'm going to get my clothes and run back home.
right.
Mhm.
Embarrassed college kids everywhere.
Yes. And just like someone had to have spiked a drink or something like that. They're just going to ignore everything.
Right. So yeah, good times. I need a smoke. I'll be back. Just kidding.
So I think he
So is
does
this the
eventually.
intermission for the 2-hour episode of Justin Wells podcast?
We're at an hour
Let's all
and
go to
15
the
in.
lobby. Let's all go to the lobby.
Yeah, we had a timekeeper, but
To
he
the
sucked.
lobby and have
Yeah,
ourselves.
apparently, our timekeeper's not very good at this job.
Seriously, Gary.
I literally said it. Oh my goodness.
No, you
Gary,
didn't.
will you go to the lobby and get me a Coke? Lock the doors.
You counted down up until every basically number except, oh, hey, time. By the way, the timekeeper's job to tell you when time is. No, I'm gonna.
Who said it's my job? I was just.
You
providing
did.
a
You kept
service.
doing it. It's your job. You took
You
that duty
volunteered.
upon yourself, Gary.
Okay, so next time we have a statistician podcast. He does statistic stuff. We have what are we doing on High Fantasy?
That
Oh,
was
You're
what
just
are we
gonna phone it in like that? Is there
Yeah.
anything else we got to talk about in
I hope not.
Bigfoot on Campus?
Well, the kids don't die. Erwin
Yeah.
realizes she's a White Court vampire, and she's like, wait, what does that mean? Am I going to sparkle or something? River
I
Shoulders
get it.
gets them out,
Oh God,
And-
no!
and then campus security shows up and arrests Harry.
Right, and then the story happens, and they're
Oh.
stuck in a loop.
And then Wild Bill bails out Harry, who just gets a
Right,
sleep in a cell. Which is
that's
he
right.
has-
Because the dude doesn't believe him. He's like, "You're clearly drunk, so you're gonna spend the night in the drunk tank." He's like, "Damn it!"
Yeah, he had called Wild Bill saying, maybe you can show up in time to help me with this fight. If not, maybe you can clean up some of the mess.
Right.
Yeah, Bill gets shit detail.
He's one of the baby wardens, so
Maybe
well,
ish.
he's also the closest one. To be fair,
Yeah.
he's the closest one. Anyway,
That is the end of that story in the middle of the anthology that we managed to cover.
Yay.
right. Yay!
We did it.
So next time we got to do like part 8 of the
Brief.
9-part short stories.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've still got a few to cover, and I'll actually read Jury Duty for next time. So since
No,
that's
don't
when
do
we'll
us any
cover it.
favors.
A small favor, would you say?
Yeah, very. Which again, side note, that's where the elves were. I put the quote up before. They were
Yes.
3 feet tall. 3 feet tall.
I know, right? Yeah, I get it. I mean, it's like one of those throwaway lines, but yeah, there's the summer hitters to match the baby gruffs, right?
We are in a
So-
pre-peace talks era. Throwaway lines are all we have.
right. And it says here on line 92 of of Summer Night that
Mhm.
okay. So, plug stuff and things.
Yes.
So what Gary was failing to do here
Miserably,
is
I might add.
miserably failing to do here is we were going to talk about Dangerous to Go Alone, which is / was a podcast of Dirty Geek Culture. Like, did they officially?
I think they're just kind
Hiatus?
of on a hiatus right now because who knows what's. I don't know. They're busy because
Real-
life happens.
Real life is hard.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so but check out their old episodes because I'm sure it is totally awesome. We're still going strong. We have the Great Scott podcast, which is a podcast about The Office. And I mean, they are still doing things, right?
Yeah.
They haven't watched all the episodes yet, so.
I don't think so.
And then High Fantasy, which is you.
Yes, which is petering a little bit because life is hard.
So hard.
Gotta figure out Bluetooth headsets and shit.
You know what you really need? A shitty timekeeper. Get you guys.
Boy, do
all
we
in
get the
line.
guy for you.
Good heavens!
And I heard
No
his rates are
respect. No
reasonable.
respect. No respect.
Well, when you do your job properly, you'll get respect.
EG is doing a very classic tactic as a new guy. He's like bullying the other new guy, thereby not being the new guy.
Right, he's
Uh-huh.
established the pecking order, so
Yeah.
The pecking order
Oh,
was
that's-
established. I've done 2 more episodes than him. I am a god by comparison.
maybe Gary, you can get a last name next time, and then you won't be redshirted or something. And then the statistics podcast that Gary was so eloquently talking about earlier is Sim Talk, where it's Jacob talking about simulations and stuff. Which, to be
Like
great,
SimCity.
no. Definitely not that. I just want to clarify because it does seem to be making waves in the professional community. So if that's something that interests you, if that's like your line of work, then at least check it out because the way that he talks it up on the site, at least, it definitely sounds like he's making some waves out there. So some pretty cool, exciting stuff.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.